A big thank you to my patrons who are the reason why I keep making content. So thank you guys for all your support. If you like this video, please consider subscribing because that really helps the channel grow and it also tells me to make more videos like this one. Welcome to the Twisted Tentacle Inn. I am your Innkeeper and today I will be giving you my first impressions of the subclasses in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Today, we'll be discussing the Barbarian subclasses. This video series is not a detailed discussion of each subclass within the book. It's just my first impressions. So my thoughts on these subclasses might change in the future after I've gotten to play with them at my tables. All right, let's begin with Path of the Beast. At 3rd level, you get the Form of the Beast ability. So when you rage, you get a natural weapon, which uses your strength modifier for attack and damage rolls. Each time that you use the ability, you can pick what type of weapon you manifest. Once you choose the weapon type, you have to rage again in order to change the type of weapon that you're getting. So if you're in combat and you chose the bite ability when you first raged, if you want to get your claws out now, you'll have to use up another rage in order to switch it to the claws. So here's what each one does. For the bite, you deal 1d8 piercing damage. If you have less than half your health left, you heal hit points equal to your proficiency bonus. So this one's pretty decent. Even though it feels like a small amount of hit points that you're healing, remember that you're raging and you have resistance to a lot of different damage types. So that 2 hit points is actually more like healing 4 hit points per round. So this one is actually pretty balanced. If they hadn't limited this to only work once per round, it would have been a little bit too powerful, I think. Now, for the claws, these deal 1d6 damage, but you have the option to attack twice with them if you attacked with them using an action. It's not bad, but it does become less good at level 5 when you get multi-attack, so you'll only be attacking 3 times with them for 1d6 each time, whereas your other weapons or your bite will be doing a lot more than that, 1d8, 1d10, 1d12 if you have like a great weapon. So it's decent at the lower levels. Once you hit level 5, it's not as good, so I would probably never use this one after that. One thing I noticed, it doesn't say that you have to use both hands to attack, so you could potentially use a shield and still get your 2 attacks and at 5th level 3 attacks, even though you're using a shield. So that's something to think about. Then the tail, you can deal 1d8 damage, and it has the reach property, which is really nice. The cool thing with this one is that you have unlimited uses of a reaction that can add 1d8 to your AC against one attack. So something to keep in mind, this is not like the shield spell where it blocks several attacks throughout the entire round. It just blocks the one attack, so you only get that bonus for one attack. Still, it's pretty nice that you can basically have something to use your reaction for. So I like that kind of thing. At level 6, you get the Bestial Soul feature. This one gives you a couple of other benefits. So first, your natural weapons from the level 3 ability are considered magical, so that's nice. It's useful at level 6, but it doesn't scale at the higher levels because usually martial types, by the time they hit like level 12, 13, you will most definitely have a magical weapon, and usually these are going to have a +1, +2, or +3 bonus, where your claw, your bite, and your tail are not going to get that bonus. So that will eke out a little bit of a greater chance to hit with your weapons, whereas these natural weapons will never get that. Still, it's nice that you'll overcome magic or non-magical weapon resistance when you attack with these, so it's not a bad ability. But you do get an additional benefit, and you get to choose from a list, and you can change to a different one once you finish a short or long rest, so you're not stuck with the one that you pick initially. And these are mostly utility abilities, and they grant you like a swim speed, a climb speed, or like a long jump. It's really nice to have, and at level 6, I think is when you're going to get the most use out of them, so it's an appropriate level to get this kind of ability. So at level 10, you get the Infectious Fury ability. I really like this one. When you hit something with your natural weapons, they make a wisdom save, or they suffer an effect that you get to pick from. So either it has to waste its reaction to attack a creature that you get to pick, or you can have it take 2d12 psychic damage. So that's really, really cool. I like the fact that you get options here. Wasting a reaction and forcing it to attack one of its friends is really tactically useful. The extra damage is pretty good. It's just too bad that it doesn't benefit from critical hits because it's a saving throw. So, but 2d12 psychic damage is nothing to sneeze at, so I'm not going to bash it too much. You do have limited uses of this ability, but it's still a pretty solid ability overall. At level 14, you get Call the Hunt. This one is really cool, and I love the flavor of it. So first, you can affect a number of creatures or allies equal to your Constitution modifier. You get 5 temporary hit points for each creature that you affect, which is really, really good. So even if you affect 4 creatures, that's 20 temporary hit points you're going to gain, which for a Barbarian is more like 40 hit points because of your damage resistance. Not just that, but while you're raging, once per turn, all the allies that you affected deal an extra d6 damage when they make an attack roll. So if you affected 5 creatures, that means that you're potentially adding 5d6 damage per round to your damage, the party's damage output. And I know what you're thinking, like, yeah, it sounds good, but honestly, most parties have at least like 2 casters or people that aren't going to be in melee attacking with attack. But at this level, most of those spellcasters are going to have like pets or summon creatures, because this ability lets you pick creatures that you get to choose from. You don't have to just pick player characters. You can pick their summoned creatures and that kind of thing to receive that extra d6 damage. So I think at this particular level and higher, you will have the ability to affect the maximum amount of creatures with this ability and maximize the damage output for your party. Another good thing with this ability is there's no range requirement once the ability is active. So once an ally receives the benefit, you could be a mile away and they're still going to deal that extra damage. And it only goes away when your rage ends. So another thing to think about that's really tactically useful here, because you can give it to your wizard and its creature, and then they can teleport away and, take care of things, still dealing that extra d6 damage. So overall, I think the Path of the Beast is a pretty solid subclass for Barbarians. The flavor and theme is really cool, and the mechanics really evoke a feeling of like a bestial person who leads a pack on a hunt. Some people mention that it's kind of like the lycanthrope subclass for D&D, and I could totally see that too. I mean, I can see a werewolf type character picking this subclass, but don't limit yourself to just lycanthropes. Someone like just with like this bestial primal rage, that just becomes more bestial, just evokes a really cool theme for me. I don't play a lot of Barbarian, but my next Barbarian will definitely be one of these. I would say that this is definitely my top 2 Barbarians as far as flavor, right next to the Ancestral Guardian from the Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Mechanically, though, I think it's pretty balanced. It's not overpowered or underpowered. I feel like it's like right in the middle of the pack. So this one is a really well-designed subclass. Next up is Path of Wild Magic. So magic and barbarians seem like complete opposites, but I think thematically this subclass really makes a case for combining the two. At level 3, you get the magic awareness feature. So this one just allows you to locate magic items or spells that are nearby, and it lets you know what school of magic a spell is from when you use the ability. It's kind of situational. Its best use is detecting like magical traps, but you probably won't run into any of those until later levels, so I guess it's okay to have. In most campaigns, I just don't see magic items that are hidden that the Dungeon Master will hide and that the party has 0 chance of finding unless they use an ability like this. So it sounds good on paper, but I think it's really, really situational. I don't know. It's not that strong. I just don't understand why it has a limited number of uses. They could have given it unlimited and it wouldn't have broken the game in any way, shape, or form. So because that one is not so great, at 3rd level you get an additional ability, and this one is called Wild Surge. So this one forces you to roll on this wild magic table, not the sorcerer one, but a new one, and that every time you rage, you get to roll an effect from there. So the good news is that every single effect is beneficial, and none of the effects negatively affect your allies like the wild magic sorcerer. Initially, I wasn't going to go into detail with all the effects that are on that table, but I changed my mind, and I think I'll briefly discuss each one and my thoughts on it. So let's go ahead and talk about them. Some of them range from like duds to pretty great. So here we go. If you roll a 1, you can deal 1d12 necrotic damage to a creature within 30 feet, and you regain 1d12 hit points. At level 3, this is a really good one. Once you hit, like, say, level 7, not so much. I mean, it doesn't scale. It's a constitution save, which is very common with creatures. and it's not an attack roll, so you can't benefit from getting advantage to it. You can't benefit from a critical hit with it. And at higher levels, 1d12 is just not a whole lot. And plus, it's a one-time effect. So once it goes off, that's it. The rest of your rage, nothing else happens. This happens when you initiate your rage, and that's it. You know, you don't want to roll a 1. All right, so a 2, you basically have like an unlimited bonus action Misty Step. You can teleport up to 30 feet away every single round as a bonus action. This is probably the best ability on this entire table, and it's pretty good even at higher levels. It's very good at lower levels. On a 3, you can summon a creature within 30 feet that explodes for 1d6 damage. Some people have been saying that it's like an area of effect damage because it's a 5-foot radius from the creature, but come on, it's a 5-foot radius. That's not area of effect, really. You're 99.9% of the time, that's going to hit one creature. So, yeah. And I got to say, the 1d6 damage, yeah, you can do it every single round as a bonus action, but there's so many more things you can do with your bonus action. If you're a great weapon master, you hit with the back end of your thing, you're adding your rage damage, you're adding your strength damage. So even though it's a 1d4 with the back end of a polearm, or I think it's polearm master, not great weapon master, but yeah, polearm master, bonus action attack with the back end, you do 1d4 plus your strength plus your rage bonus damage. It's a lot more than 1d6. Yeah, this has a little bit of range, but it's only 1d6, and that only stays good until about 4th level. After that, 1d6 damage as a bonus action every round is horrendous. There are so many better things you can do with your bonus action. And you know what? The worst part is that it's a saving throw, so there's a chance that it's going to do 0. You can't get advantage to hit with it. It sucks. Let's just put that out there. So don't roll a 3. Once you hit like level 4, you don't want to roll a 3. All you're going to do is make your enemies laugh at you because how lame this ability is. All right, so at 4, your weapon turns magical and you can do force damage. That's nice. You can throw it and it reappears in your hand. It's pretty cool. It has a really cool thematic feel. I like the reappearing in your hand thing. I like it, for warlocks, Path of the Blade can do that, or Eldritch Knights can do that. I really like the ability to kind of make your weapon reappear in your hand. I think it's really thematic and cool. At higher levels, though, it's not as good. Most martial characters, including yourself, already are going to have magic weapons. So having the ability to do force damage, it's only going to be useful once in a blue moon. The throwing thing is okay, even at higher levels, but it's just that. It's just okay. All right, so if you roll a 5, you get this ability that deals 1d6 force damage every time a creature hits you. So this one is really, really good at low levels. The only damage on this list that doesn't require any kind of saving throw, and it's also force damage, so that's really good. It doesn't take your reaction, so that's really good. And it can trigger as many times per round. So if you hit 5 times in a round, 5 times creatures are going to take 1d6 force damage. That's pretty good. So low levels, that's amazing. Higher levels, it's so-so. But if you're surrounded or if you're constantly fighting a lot of creatures, then it's still pretty good at high levels. So I just think that a lot of these abilities, if you're noticing a theme here, they don't scale well for higher levels, and that is a huge problem with this subclass, but it doesn't get better, and I'll explain in a moment here. So when you roll a 6, then you get a +1 to your armor class. Any ally within 10 feet of you also gets the bonus. Still, another effect. It's decent at low levels, not so good at higher levels. By level 5, a +1 to AC is really not going to mean too much. I don't know. I think higher levels, you're going to be more worried about failing saving throws. So even if it was a +1 and stayed as a +1, but it was to all your saving throws, that would still be beneficial even through level 20. But an AC bonus just is baffling to me. I don't understand what they were thinking with this subclass. On a 7, you cause vegetation to grow around you, and so it within 15 feet of you, it's difficult terrain only for your enemies, not for your allies. So that's interesting. It's a good control ability, Again, at low levels, it's amazing. At higher levels, it's okay. I mean, difficult terrain is still good. It's still a good control ability. Nothing to write home about, but it's okay. And then on a roll of 8, you shoot a laser beam from your chest or whatever it is, and you deal 1d6 damage to a creature if they fail a saving throw. But if they fail, they're blinded until the start of your next turn, which is really good. So the damage is pretty terrible. So the blinded condition is pretty good, even at higher levels, but the damage doesn't scale, so that's really inconsequential. I wish that damage scaled, but you can do this every single round for free as a bonus action. Doesn't use any resources, so every round you can attempt a bonus action to blind a creature until the start of your next turn. That one's pretty good. Eventually they'll fail their saving throw, and again, the blinded condition stays relevant through level 20, so that's nice. So those are the 8 effects that you can produce. It's too bad the effects are random, but you can produce a different effect every time you rage, and they're all pretty useful. So overall, I think the ability is good, at least at lower levels. It's just too bad that they don't scale very well at higher levels, and some of them just become outright bad at the highest levels. So at level 6, you gain the Bolstering Magic ability. This one allows you to give a benefit to a creature, and so you can pick to either give them a D3 bonus to attack rolls or ability checks, or you can have them regain a spell slot equal to the number that you rolled. This one's really, really good. You can't use it on a specific creature more than once per long rest, but potentially this can get your party several additional 3rd level slots. Potentially. It's balanced mostly because you have the potential to roll a 1 and then have them regain 1st level slots. But even a 1st level spell slot can be useful. So, it's not bad at all. The ability becomes less useful if you don't have too many spellcasters in your party, because only one person can benefit per long rest. So, if you only have one spellcaster in your party, then you're only using this one time per long rest. And the other part of the ability 1d3 to an ability check. I mean, it sounds good on paper, but it's got a duration of 10 minutes. So you kind of have to know that you're going to be using this ahead of time. So if you use it for an ability check, okay, the 10-minute thing is fine. But if you're going to be using this in combat to give people a 1d3 bonus to attack rolls, it takes an action. So as a barbarian, you're not going to waste an action so that someone else is going to get a d3 bonus to an attack roll. To attack rolls, until your rage ends. That doesn't make sense. You could do so much better with your action than what anyone else is going to be able to do with that 1d3. So you're not going to waste your action to do that. So that means that if you want to use it for attack rolls, you have to know that the combat is going to be happening within the next 10 minutes. Otherwise, if you do it within combat, you're wasting your action. It doesn't make any sense to me. All right, so 10th level, this one's called Unstable Backlash. Basically, if you take damage or fail saving throw, you can use your reaction to roll on the table and you replace your current wild magic effect. This one, I really don't care for this ability. I guess if you don't like the effect that you rolled when you first raged, it's nice that you can re-roll it, but realistically, this ability is pretty much about as useful as not getting anything new at 10th level. It's random, and you don't really get to activate it proactively. And all it does is just repeat the ability that you already have, and it doesn't stack with it. So at 3rd level, you get this wild magic thing, and you roll a cool one. Then at 10th level, you have the ability to change it if you want. But if you roll the cool one, why would you want to re-roll it? If you roll the bad one, okay, you get to re-roll it, but you're still just using your 3rd level ability. It's this 10th level ability is a huge disappointment. And like I was just saying, if you like the one that you rolled, then this ability is completely useless because you're not going to want to re-roll it, right? All right, so then at 14th level, you get the Controlled Surge feature. So basically, when you rage, you roll on the table twice instead of once, and you pick one of the 2 rolls. If you roll the same number on both die, then you can choose what effect happens. So I bet you know what I'm going to say next. For a level 14th ability, this is really terrible. I'm not going to sugarcoat this one. Sure, like having a little bit more control on what effect you get is pretty nice, but the randomness is still there. If there's one particular effect you want, like of all of them, then you basically have a slightly higher than 23% chance of getting it. And if my math is right, you have a 1 in 8 or 12.5% chance of rolling the same number on both die, which is your most beneficial roll because you get to pick the ability, right? So those odds are pretty garbage odds for a level 14 ability. I'm not even taking into account the real reason this ability is so bad. The worst part is that you really haven't received anything new. Level 10, you didn't really get anything new. Level 14, you really didn't get anything new. All you've done is increase your chances of getting the effect that you want from a third level ability that you got. So think about that. And since the effects don't scale, the only one that you're probably going to want is that Misty Step one. So does this feel like a higher chance to get a bonus action teleport is worthy of a 14th level ability? I don't think so. All the other features are pretty useless by this point. I guess the one that gives the blinded condition is okay, but pretty much, I mean, I'd say that most of the other ones are pretty laughable even by level 10. Unless all you wanted to do is use your bonus action to make your enemies laugh at you or something. So your level 10 and your level 14 ability are just ways to make your level 3 ability more consistent. Mechanically, that's horrible design. Your level 6 ability is the only one that's pretty good. Well, half of it is pretty good, the regaining of a spell slot. But it's not worth it enough for you to pick this subclass at all. So, unfortunately, this subclass had a lot of potential. I think the level 3 ability is decent, especially at lower levels. The level 6 ability is decent, but you basically gain nothing new from this subclass after level 6. So that's pretty horrendous. I would say that this subclass was the worst in the book if the Artificer Alchemist wasn't worse. So what saves this subclass is honestly that level 3 and level 6 abilities. That's it. So the Barbarian subclasses end up being kind of a mixed bag. Both have fantastic themes. I love the themes for both of them. And some cool mechanics in both. The Wild Magic Barbarian sets itself apart as a good dip class or dip subclass for martial characters who want to take advantage of that third level ability. But the third level ability is the only saving grace, honestly. Everything else afterward is either mediocre or worthless. There's no way that I'd ever play this subclass past level 6. You know what? I think I probably wouldn't even play the subclass past level 4. So the Primal Path of the Beast is great all around. They have solid abilities, they're fun, they're thematic, and even though they don't really pack a big punch, I think they stand out as a really solid character. So my rankings for the Barbarian subclasses in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, based on my first impressions, are bottom tier, the Path of Wild Magic, of course. Mid tier, the Path of the Beast. And no subclasses in this book made the top tier for me for Barbarian subclasses. So that's it for my first impressions on the Barbarian subclasses in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Remember that my opinions for some of these might change with time as I play with some of these at the table. These are just my first impressions, and sometimes first impressions can be deceiving. I do hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you did, please consider clicking the like button to let me know that you want to see more videos like it. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down there in the comments down below. And as always, I am your innkeeper from the Twisted Tentacle Inn. Check in anytime. I'll talk with you then.